Hey guys, what's up? So with the current ongoing situation with the virus and all, I've been doing these daily quizzes. Uh, I've been doing them just as a form of entertainment to just pass on the days. And I've been looking at specific anime. In this, I'm kind of doing them in a bit of a rotation. You'll notice the first 7 days, and I've done that in that same order for a second week. So today we're focusing on Beyblade. This is a series I've been watching since I was very young. I remember being probably about 7 or 8 when the first series came out, and I've enjoyed it ever since. Although saying that, I have not seen some of the newer series. They had the Metal series, which I watched, and then the series kind of after that I didn't watch, so I've got to catch up on that at some point. So most of the questions I'll be focusing on in this one is going to be about the specific members of those of individual teams, and just general information about them. Most of these teams haven't been seen more than once, and therefore they don't have any relevance to the story except for maybe a little bit of character progression from the opponent's team, which tends to be, for example, in this case, the White Tigers or the bladebreakers. Question 1 is, which team in the Asian Championship made their own blades? There was only one team that actually did this, so it shouldn't be too confusing. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. And the answer is the Blade Hunters. They were a team featured within the Asian tournament, and they participated in the semi-finals, losing to the Blade Breakers. They represent... They're the Maldivian team, originating from the Maldives. They have only 3 members. They don't have any substitutes, unlike the Bladebreakers, who I think have Max as their registered. Max is registered as their substitute. They were a team who lost 3-0 to the Blade Breakers. And they formed a friendship actually with them, saying that the Blade Hunters will never forget the Blade Breakers. They're also featured being seen watching the Russian World Championships arc, supporting Tyson. They created their own blades using bits of plywood they could find from the island. Max was instructed to stall the match by Kenny to prevent them losing, because even though Kai went first and defeated his first opponent, and Max could easily defeat his second opponent, the problem is if they didn't have a third person for the third match, even if they won both the first 2, it would count as them forfeiting the match. This happened because Ray had gone to see Mariah about the White Tiger situation and tried to go back to the White Tigers. Tyson tried to stop him, and in the process actually damaged his leg when he was climbing down from a mountain. Ray had to carry him. This is why Max was stalling. Eventually he managed to get back, although Kai wasn't happy with the situation, because Max stalling was seen as a way of insulting his opponents, and he got a lot of boos from his opponents. So, following on from that question, what are the names of the 3 members of the Blade Hunters? It's quite difficult to remember. They weren't very relevant. Again, they were only seen once off as a cameo within the Russian championships. And other than that, their only kind of main part was when they were participating in the semi-finals against the Bladebreakers. And the answers are Chucky, who is the captain, seen on the left, Lippy is the middle one, and Zippy is on the right. Out of all the different members of that team, the only one who had their own version of a special attack was Chucky, who was able to use like a deep sea attack against Max. However, because Max had a powerful defensive type Drasil, it was able to kind of fend off these attacks very easily and was able to defeat him without much of a problem. So question 3 is, what is the team name of India's representatives? Ironically, the Indian representatives, India is actually both featured within this, and it was actually featured in Metal Masters, I think it was. Their team name for India was called Chandora, but this one is completely different. And the answer is the Charming Princes. They are India's representatives and apparently are supposed to have descended from royalty. They participated in the Asian tournament in China, losing to the Bladebreakers in the second round of the A block. They are also seen again in the Russian World Championship arc, where they are there to kind of support Tyson when he was facing Tala when it was shown on TV. Their first appearance was seen in Crouching Lion, Hidden Tiger, and their members are Robin, who is the captain, Ronnie, and the third member was an unnamed blader. They didn't name them at all. Kenny was seen to be saying that their blades were the heaviest and the tallest in height that fit within the legal parameters set by the Beyblade Association at the time. They said that it's kind of right that that it would suit a Prince-based team. They lost 3-0 to the Bladebreakers, and all the Beyblades, as a bit of trivia for you, are the same except for colour. Each represents red, yellow, and green, which are also their shirts' respective colours. So question 4 is, what is the name of the team that has a grudge against the Majestics? And the answer is the Dark Bladers. They are members who were originally humans that were turned into soulless monsters after wishing for more power. Their aim was to capture and destroy any bit beast they came across as revenge for their losses in the past. They begin to reform after watching the Bladebreakers battle against the Majestics, and they see this as kind of like them dealing with the sins as the Majestics admit to their defeat and for making them suffer. So question 5 is further on from this. Which member of the Bladebreakers saves the others from Cenotaph's Bit Beast Sarcophalon? So this is the member of the Dark Bladers who uses a mummy-based Bit Beast. And the answer is Kai. Initially, what the blader was trying to do was to was for Cenotaph to trap the bladebreakers in a small confined space, so that his bit beast would kind of be able to entangle them and deal with the bit beasts immediately with its own kind of powers. The disadvantage of that, using that technique, is that in the same way it could wrap its way against the other bit beasts by extending its arms. It could also get itself confused following a path that Kai's bit beast Dronza was drawing up. In doing that, it entangled itself in such a way that it was defeated by its own powers. This wasn't helped, especially since they had these kind of, in the UK you have these kind of fire landing escape from the backs of buildings. Well, he managed to get sarcophalon to mix his arms through these various holes and eventually ensnare himself within his own trap. Question 6 is, what is the team called that represented Thailand in the Asian Championships? And the answer is the Tall Boys. They were seen losing to the Bladebreakers in the first round of the A block, and were also seen as a supporting team that cheered Tyson on in the Russian championships against Tala. Their three members used very different styles. Their individual members are Tommy, Andre, and Waylon. Waylon was seen using a kind of power that the more the blade spins, the more heat it generates. This was the match used against Match and his Drasil. Drasil's defensive techniques weren't effective because the longer Waylon was able to spin his blade, the more likely it was to generate heat. Kenny told Max that he just needed to hold on to the situation a bit longer because if he did that, eventually the Waylon's blade would just weaken by itself. This was actually the case in that he was able to kind of, once it started wobbling, he was able to kind of knock it out. In the match against Andre, this was against a Beyblade which was acted a bit like a yak. It was very offensive based and kept going after Ray. It was eventually kind of beaten by its own kind of attacks. Ray just kept avoiding them, and this kind of frustrated Andre to the point where he kind of lost control of the blade and it kind of crashed out and went to sleep on its own. And obviously the final match was actually Tommy versus Tyson. So question 7 is, what is the name of the captain of the Tall Boys? Now I've told you the individual members' names. You just need to remember which of the three is the captain. This was quite an unusual set of characters. Each used their own bit beast. Well, not bit beast. They used their own Beyblade, which worked their particular styles. The captain's technique was quite unusual and was seen, I think, once by someone who was supporting the White Tigers and wanted to join him. If you looked at my previous one, I mentioned that person's name was Bruce. And the answer is Tommy. He was the leader who faced Tyson of the Bladebreakers at the beginning of the Asian tournament and launched his blade from his foot when he was using these various kicking techniques. His specialty was the Muay Thai kick. He uses a red Beyblade. The blade base is loaded with springs that come out of it. It also has metal balls inside and attached to the ends of the springs to help the Beyblade jump and balance when attacking from above. Ray has mentioned that its attack pattern resembles Kai's Spinfire attack. Kai disagreed with this and said that it doesn't have the same destructive power, but can cause considerable damage. Nonetheless, it focuses its attack on the opposing Beyblade's attack ring and axis, focusing on a more offensive technique. Tommy uses a custom launcher, where the launcher itself is a standard one, but the ripcord is connected to the Muay Thai ankle support on his right leg. This increases the power of the launch, giving the Beyblade an extra burst of power at the start of the match. This was quite effective, being used against Tyson at the beginning because of his kind of brash nature. He would kind of clash head to head. But Kenny and Ray advised him to kind of avoid until he got into the perfect position, which was a case where he was being knocked straight off a cliff. With the whole specialized domes that they create. When he got to that point, Tommy actually went with his blade, went after him. In which case, I think it was Ray who advised him to use his special move then in order to blow Tommy's blade out of the stadium. So question 8 is, what is the name of the Dark Bladers captain? For this, I'll make this a little bit easier, just so it's not too difficult. Okay, so the 4 members are Zom, Sanguinex, Lupinex, and Cenotaph. And you need to tell me from each of those answers which person it is. And the answer is Sanguinex. He is considered the unofficial leader of the Dark Bladers and is Lupinex's older brother. He is a very calm and mild-mannered member most of the time. However, since he was defeated by Robert, he has a deep hatred towards him and the rest of the Majestics team. Surprisingly, he has quite a lot of patience when handling his little brother, and is usually the one to calm Lupinex's nerves. Overall, he's considered to be very polite and well-mannered, but at the same time having that sinister and creepy smile. He only loses his temper when he loses a match, and when he thinks about Robert, and when people won't let him finish his sentences. He appears to possess the ability to transform with his cloak, as seen when he confronts Tyson in the hallway in Challenge. Whether the other Dark Bladers possess the same power is unknown, but is considered to be quite likely. His Beyblade is referred to as Dracula, and was actually countered, I think, by Ray, who put a silver nickel on his blade, which is used to ward off. I think it's to ward off the vampire. He was first met in the episode of Darkness at the End of the Tunnel, where the Bladers were trying to, I think it was travel through the Eurotunnel, and it ends up being that the Dark Bladers had control of that particular train, were able to kind of stop them off at a certain place, and then force them into a bay battle. Question 9 is, which of the majestics drew with Ray in their own tournament? So this is the European Championships that their leader managed to organise. Robert organised using his own funding, and he even managed to get the Blader DJ involved as the MC for the match. And the answer is France's representative, Oliver. He uses a bit beast called Unicorn, which is a unicorn style bit beast. He uses this Earth Shaker technique, which is designed to unbalance the opponent's Beyblade. This works against most of his opponents, however, it does not work too well against Tyson, who actually defeats him just when they were facing, just going to France normally and just stumble across him. And then later on in the European Championships, the two between Oliver and Ray draw. Oliver's seen to be doubting himself when he gets into the championships, as he kind of sees the importance of the battling as a team, and by feeling alone, his confidence shook up. He managed to resolve and get his resolve back just enough to clench a draw. Otherwise, he was looking towards a loss. He's considered one of the more calm members and the easiest to get on with. He is considered a very good artist as well as a top-rated chef. He becomes very good friends with Tyson and Kenny. And the final question is question 10. Who is the team leader of Australia's Down Under Thunder? Now, this wasn't a team that was seen much of in the American tournament. They went up against the All-Stars, and he pretty much was the only member to be seen. He faced off against Michael, whereas the other two members had already lost. And the answer is Pee-wee. He is supposed to represent, similar to the Crocodile Dundee movies, a reference to kind of Australian heritage. He is the captain of the Australian team known as Team Down Under Thunder. He is a very proud person who is very angered by Michael's flamboyant entrance and carefree attitude. I believe what Michael had arranged was for him to kind of skydive his way into the stadium, which he did. He gets humiliated by Michael very easily. This was during the second round of the American tournament, after his teammate was defeated by Stephen. Despite having lost the round, he hoped to avenge his teammates by defeating Michael, but immediately after launching, his blade was completely destroyed by Trigal. So, what did you guys think of the quiz? Was there anything you found interesting? Was there anything that you hadn't known that you learned this time? Leave your comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. I always like to kind of see how you guys feel, just to get some more feedback about the success or lack thereof of these videos. And of course, don't forget to subscribe.